We begin tonight here in Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu has ordered the recruitment of an extra 30,000 police following a spate of mass abductions in recent days. The president's office also announced that officers currently protecting VIPs will be redeployed to frontline duties. The move comes as 50 of the more than 300 children abducted from a Catholic school in Niger State on Friday managed to escape their captors. Mr. Tinubu has welcomed the news, adding that he was being briefed on the security situation across the country. A search and rescue operation is ongoing for the remaining students and 12 teachers. Pope Leo has called on the authorities to help secure the release of the remaining kidnapped children. Schools across a number of Nigerian states have been ordered to close. Meanwhile, after a week in captivity, 38 people abducted during a church service in Eruku in Kwara State were freed on Sunday.
I was deeply saddened to learn of the kidnapping of priests, faithful and students in Nigeria and Cameroon. I feel great pain, especially for the many young men and women who have been abducted and for their anguished families. I make a heartfelt appeal for the immediate release of the hostages and urge the competent authorities to take appropriate and timely decisions to ensure their release.
Affinché vengano subito liberati gli ostaggi.
The Catholic Pontiff. Well, for the very latest, I'm joined now in the studio by Arise Director of News and Political Editor Sumner Sambo. Good to see you, Sumner.
Thank you so
Let's
much,
start
Ross.
with those 38 people who were taken from a church in Eruku in Kwara State who've been freed. Do we know how their freedom was secured?
Well, that's what we're waiting for the government to actually explain to us, because we just heard that they were freed, and we don't know if there was a military action or it was a police action, or we actually had some, local vigilante volunteers, coming up together to do that. Because in the statement issued by the Kwara State government, they kept commending President Bola Tinubu and the military for doing a great job. But how that happened and what happened to those who were holding these people hostage is what no one has been able to tell us. And of course, we at Arise News continue to ask those difficult questions because we need to know what exactly actually happened to those who took these hostages.
Indeed. Now let's talk about these 50 school children who managed to escape from their abductors in Niger State. How did they manage to do it? What do we know?
Same questions we've been asking because from our information everywhere, Arise News, we've got a crew right now in Kwara State following up on all these issues. We've also got a crew in Niger and then, of course, in Kebbi State, all following up on this and trying to support government and, of course, families as they go through this grief period. In all of this, we haven't really heard so much. The Catholic Church there just told us that these 50 persons, they all just came back home. So the thinking from those we've been able to interview, what they are saying is that this could have happened in such a way that the terrorists came around and some people ran into the bushes and all of that. So when they were gone, some of those people who were not directly taken away, but who had run away, are now the ones coming back.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's what some of the community leaders are telling us and all of that, because from their own interview with some of those people who are back, some of those students, they didn't really have direct encounters with the kidnappers or the terrorists or bandits or however they are called.
And obviously, the next logical question, which then becomes a moot point, would have been the ones that have escaped, do we know what condition they're in? But if they were never actually taken, then they're probably in the same condition they were in.
We actually had to put those questions to them because from what our reporters have said, when they actually came back, some of them didn't really have any injuries and all of that and so. So from what we're hearing, from what we're saying, the rescue efforts are still on. The good thing is that at least we have these 50 people back.
Indeed.
And it's good news for the government, for Nigerians. But of course, the logical thing to ask is how did all of this happen? And then, of course, those who are still in captivity, what's being done and all of that. And there's a sense of feeling, having spoken with a whole lot of people within the intelligence community, that some of these terrorists may be taking some of these targets ahead of a possible fear of a U.S. bombardment. And so they could be thinking of using them as human shield. And it's also a way of telling the government that, look, we're actually going to make sure that we expose your weakness. We can't have security services everywhere, and the communities themselves are weak. And speaking with one of the security experts too, he also told me that, look, these communities are so overwhelmed. Many of them don't have monies to pay for ransom whenever they are taken again. So individually, people can no longer pay ransom when they are kidnapped. And so what this group of terrorists now intend to do is to go around and pick people in large volume so that they'll be able to get the government's money or money from others who are able to send quantum of money for ransom payment and all of that. Now, in all of this, what we are seeing also is that some people are being taken in huge volumes, like 10, 12, 15, and being turned into slaves. Slavery, modern day slavery for the terrorists, because these people cannot afford to pay their ransom.
Yeah, the point, of course, is that we don't know whether they're bandits or terrorists.
Yes, I mean, whoever it is, this is what is happening now. I mean, one of the intelligence people was telling me, this is what's happening because these communities are too poor right now. So they just go on raids when they need more people and just capture them and turn them to slaves because they can't pay for ransom and all of that. Point. So the government should take a look at all of this holistic approach. And then, of course, it could be a way of actually trying to, make Nigeria look bad internationally. Because you see some of the things that the U.S. lawmakers are writing on social media, that they don't have an appropriate understanding of the Nigerian environment. But in all, Charles, we're all praying for the safe return of all these people. I mean, whether they are kids or adults, because there are still so many adults that are in captivity, not just kids.
And the remoteness of the area where this took place, I mean, it doesn't bode well for finding the remaining children, does it? I mean, Niger State is the biggest state in Nigeria by land mass. So these are ideal grounds for gangs to hide their victims.
And apart from what you've just said, Charles, we've been asking a whole lot of questions. For example, this community where this happened in Borgu in Niger North, this particular area is where we have the Kainji Dam, and then we have an Air Force base, and that's where we have our Super Tucanos. That's the home of our Super Tucanos.
So you
we
think
spent about
well
500.
protected?
Yeah, we spent about $500 million during the first time of Trump purchasing all of this. These Super Tucanos have all sort of night vision and all of that. They can take off swiftly and all of that. So we are surprised how such a thing could happen with over 300 people taken.
And they're not being seen.
Yes, and they're not being seen. Heat mapping and all of that. And guess what, Charles? This is the same area where some of these terrorists are being tried. In Kainji, the military facility there is where some of these terrorists are being tried in huge volumes. In large volumes. And so once they are done, because the trial is happening in secret, once they are done, the Attorney General of the Federation and all others will come and brief us, okay, this is what has happened. And once in a while, they allow the media to come in and see how the trial is ongoing. So we will think that this is the most protected area. But of course, Niger State is large and all of that. Yes, it's home to one of the best air bases that we have, especially for training our Air Force officers. So
it's a bit of a paradox.
What exactly is happening
at the moment? And we don't know who these groups are that have. Nobody's claimed responsibility yet. We don't know if they're ideologically
different groups actually
driven or in terms of the people who captured those.
Most of them are ideologically driven groups. I mean, you have ISWAP operating there. I mean, the axis specifically between Niger, Kebbi, and Sokoto.
But we don't know if it's them or whether it's a bandit group that's just looking for money. I mean,
it's just the division. I mean, there's no fine line between terrorists, bandits, and ordinary kidnappers.
And we also understand that actually the extremist groups sometimes employ bandits or use kidnapping, as you said earlier, as a way of securing more money, basically.
Yes. Okay, now let me also tell you something that happens. So there are like 3 categories of banditry or terrorism that we are also hearing of now. So the little ones go around, capture some people, and then the medium ones come around, do profiling from those that they've captured. And if they're able to get a big person among those who were captured maybe on the highways, kidnapped on the highways and all of that, then the smaller group will sell that high-profile suspect to the medium one, and then the medium one will now sell to the bigger groups like Boko Haram, Lakurawa, and all of that.
This is a racket, isn't
yes,
it?
Yes,
Major
and that's why we're
racket.
saying that the government needs to wake up, because it's like business.
My
And now they
goodness.
go into communities, they raid communities and raid things that they're able to get, they sell and recover money, because they are not being able to get, they are not able to get monies from the community members again, because they are too poor. Many of them,
Yes,
they are unable to farm any longer and all of that. That's why I've said that, okay, some of them, they've taken them into servitude because they can't pay, so they help them do one or two things here and there. And then the military needs to up its intelligence, and then what of the civilians too, the politicians? One other things that we're seeing to this dimension is that some of these, security threats are happening in where there are either majorities or minorities, and there's a tendency for politicians to use this for voter suppression. So in areas where politicians think that they cannot win elections, they go around there, cause trouble, or it becomes a problematic thing. And during election, this large population of these areas are unable to vote. And so within a state, it's minority numbers of people that will elect a governor or a senator and all of that. Because if those huge populated areas are allowed to vote, maybe the electoral figures may be different.
Yes.
So some people may be engaging in all of this to cause voter suppression in communities where they feel large votes could be coming out from.
It's a very murky story,
Yeah,
isn't
the government should wake up.
Yes.
I mean, a whole lot of factors are in, and then let's synthesize them. We as journalists continue to support our government. Nobody will want a foreign invasion. And of course, even in the US, you see killings happening every now and then. I remember when Bill Clinton came to Nigeria, there were those talks about how several blacks are being killed in the US and all of that. And, we are just all praying for a peaceful world someday.
Well, President Tinubu has said he's approved the recruitment of 30,000 more police officers and the redeployment of officers that protect VIPs to the front lines to secure more parts of the country. How do you assess those two moves? Very good move, but this is not the first time we're hearing that. Former President Buhari actually, from 2018, he asked for the recruitment of about 6,000 policemen, and from 2021, about 10,000 policemen were asked to be recruited every year. And so the idea was that before he would end his tenure, would have a huge quantum. And so what really happened to those policemen that were recruited? Because what we heard at some point was that they were just constables, supernumerary policemen and all of that. They were given lots of, firepower. Some of them were not even paid. There was a time when some of these recruited policemen were protesting that they were not being paid. And the federal government said, no, it wasn't their job to pay, it was the state. And it got enmeshed in a whole lot of things. I hope those things have been settled. And then let's talk about the issues of the agro rangers. Very briefly.
Very briefly. The issues of the agro rangers, that the forest rangers, that the federal government has said that they will. And, it's been staying for too long. We don't know so much as to what's happening. The agro rangers division of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps is also something that we don't know what's going on. Now, the NSCDC was brought in place to help protect facilities and all of that. But the mandate of the NSCDC is changing, the civil defense. Now he has asked the civil defense to be protecting
the VIPs
and all of that. What happens to the installations? Because the idea of bringing the civil defense was to protect public facilities and all of that. But of course, like it happens in most institutions, there's an abuse. But we just pray that the Inspector General of Police will be able to do the best that he can, mop up all these policemen attached to VIPs and protect Nigerians more. And that's why I keep advocating we need a national guard, a pseudo military and police system, away from the mobile police force system that we have, a national guard that will be able to secure this country better. The US is doing it. Why can't we do it?
Well, we'll keep an eye on them. Sumner, thank you very much indeed. Sumner Sambo is Arise Director of News and Political Editor.